Out of the Abyss. That's the campaign that we're going to be running. I want to introduce you to the players, and so I'm going to go in the order that they're listed at the top of my screen. First up, we have my buddy Alexios playing.
I'm playing two characters actually. I'm playing Snake. That's with an exclamation point, and he's playing or he, she. I forget which gender the character is at the moment. Is Yanti and is a sorcerer with a dark past of indeterminate origin.
Excellent.
And then I'm also making, or I also made a half orc uh, cleric who likes killing things.
Excellent. Next up, we have my buddy Eric.
Yeah, I'm playing Melrath, who's a dwarf fighter, and yeah, he dwarfs and fights because he likes drinking.
What is his eventual character direction?
I guess to drink and become a fighter.
Very well. Eric will eventually become an Eldritch Knight, which is what I was getting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Next up, we have my buddy Kyle. Say hello, Kyle.
Hi. I am playing, for lack of a better name, Bob, who is a tiefling warlock and just kind of a dick and does everything for himself.
Okay. And last and certainly not least, we have Dear Chris playing as
Ringik, possibly the once and future Goblin King, but currently a thug with delusions of grandeur.
Excellent. That sounds exactly like a D&D campaign. So let's open this up and introduce you guys to the campaign. So let's see. Click the right thing. There we go. All right. Captured by the Drow. You wouldn't wish this fate upon anyone, and yet here you are, locked in a dark cave, the cold, heavy weight of metal tight around your throat and wrists. You are not alone. Other prisoners are trapped in here with you, in an underground outpost far from the light of the sun. Your captors include a cruel Drow priestess who calls herself Mistress Ilvara of House Mizram. Over the past several days, you've met her several times, robed in silken garments and flanked by two male drow, one of whom has a massive scars along one side of his face and neck. Mistress Ilvara likes impress her will with the scourge in hand and remind you that your life now belongs to her. Accept your fate, learn to obey, and you may survive, she says. Her words echo in your memory, even as you plot your escape. So, the very first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to determine the order in which every single character has come to this prison. So I want everybody to go down to the bottom row of dice and grab your D10 and drop it in the chat.
Oh crap! Which one's a 10?
It is the sort of middle one, 20, 12, and then 10, going from left to right. Okay. We just need Snake.
Oh, okay.
Snake! Snake! Someone was gonna say it. Don't judge me.
I'm not judging.
Yes, you are. You're all judging me.
Okay, so now that we've determined the order in which everybody showed up, can I ask you to redirect your attention back to Discord for a moment and open up a document that I have sent to you?
Document?
And actually, I should probably make sure that that thing is properly shared. Give me just a second. Get shareable link. Copy. Sorry, please use this link. There. Yeah, and it has sharing at the end of it.
Prisoner backgrounds.
Okay, so the order in which everyone arrived is Kyle was the very first person to arrive.
Damn it!
Wait a minute. Been a prisoner for 1 day. I'm sorry, I have it backwards. Kyle was the last person to arrive. Eric was the first person to arrive. So Eric, on this list, I want you to choose a background that you think suits your character, that gives you a little bit of flavor about what you've been doing ever since you've been made a prisoner. And when you choose it, I want you to read it for everybody involved.
Okay, alright. When you arrived in prison, you immediately pitched yourself as a good cook. This let you work in
In the kitchen, and the effect is that the party has 1 week's worth of food hoarded away. So Eric has selected that particular background. I'm just going to strike it through real quick or highlight it yellow there. So nobody can choose that one. Next to arrive was Snake! Exclamation point.
The guards particularly enjoy humiliating you. They force you to come attend to Area 10.
That is the actually, what area is that? Give me just a second. The map for this. Nope, that's the wrong map. Area 10. That is for the players. That is also for the players. Where are my maps? Malcolm Vale. Wait a minute. These are only player maps. They didn't actually include the DM shit. Huh. Well, that's a pain in the ass. I'll have to actually grab my book for this. Give me a second. Okay. Area 10. Ah, Area 10 is the guard tower. So that is the area that is closest to your slave quarters. It is one of at least 2 guard towers that you're aware of in this complex, and I'll give you more information about it a little bit later. But for now, let me highlight that as well. If I remember correctly, the next person who showed up was Ringik.
I'm going to choose number 7 because that's kind of up his alley. Fortunately for you, your hands are quicker than the eye. You snagged a tiger eye gem almost as big as your fist and hope that you can use it to bribe a guard.
Excellent. Um, for the purposes of that, I'm gonna have you, just enter in to your inventory Tiger's Eye. You can just custom add it in. That'll be fine.
So greedy.
And then next is the Fixer Upper. The Fixer Upper has arrived.
As soon as you were tossed into the prisoner enclosure, an orc named Ront started a fight, and you kicked the crap out of him. Ront now fears you and acquiesces to your whims.
Excellent. How bloodthirsty of our cleric. Did you heal him afterwards?
Yeah, I'm a half-orc.
Okay. So Ront was abused as soon as Fixer Upper showed up. And last but not least, Kyle, you were the most recent arrival. You were thrown into this prison just a day ago. What did you do?
I don't think it's in my nature to help kids, so I'm going to pick number 6.
Okay.
You naturally have picked up on the backstabbing nature of the Drow and know what to listen for. You have some imperfect information.
Okay.
Ooh.
So just to add a little bit of context, I think all the players read the header at the top. Yes.
I'll take a look at it again for good measure.
Okay, I'm going to throw it out there for everybody else who's watching. When I say imperfect information, the objective here was simply to make sure that I didn't just hand the players the source material. I wanted to give them some information about their surroundings because your objective is to escape. Escape is absolutely possible and in fact required for the adventure to continue. So, in order for that to happen though, you're going to need some information about where it is you're being held and what ways in which you might be able to escape. So, um, I I'm gonna provide some of that information now, and the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna share some maps. Now, these are large maps, and it is oh, I see, they had a pin on them. So I'll suggest that you guys zoom out as much as you can. So here's the first map that I want to share for you. And you're going to be able to see the entire map, and you're supposed to be able to see it. So what I'm going to do is, let me get my pen. Come on, keep drawing. Okay, there we go. So I've drawn on the map. Slave, this is the pen in which you are contained. And so that's the first thing that I'm going to throw in there for you. Now, there's actually a bunch of context for this, so let me, whoa, what did that do? Holy shit. Shrink that back down, and let me close that for a second. Close that. So you guys can take a look at that for a second. Now, there's also a side map, and the reason that there's a side map is because the location in which you're currently being held is a Drow outpost, and they've made this Drow outpost near the top of a cave. And you can see that there's that waterfall in the center. And that waterfall actually does a really good job of sort of drowning out noise that might otherwise echo around. And there are some webs. There are some giant spiders that live in the area. They don't seem to bother you guys or the drow. And they have made some webs in the lower area. But all of this, the waterfall, the webs, and the fact that it's up close near the ceiling means that this drow outpost is actually pretty well naturally hidden. And so, you've seen occasionally other creatures milling around near the bottom of the cavern, but they never seem to look up and notice anyone is there. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to roll some dice. So first of all, this is for Melrath. Okay. Okay, that's strange. For Melrath, you at one point, as you were being tossed back into a cell, you had managed to sort of grab onto the Drow Guardian's belt, and you managed to get a hand crossbow, which is coated with Drow poison. And that Drow poison specifically puts people to sleep. Now, you only have the one bolt and you only have the one crossbow, but that's something that you managed to get. So feel free to go into the items and add hand crossbow to your list. And so next up, I'm going to do, who is that? That was Melrath. This is for Snake. Snake, unfortunately, managed to not scavenge anything from his time at the prison. Let's see if Ringik did any better. 12. Ringik has a single gold coin. That's all he has, aside from that tiger eye that he got as part of his prisoner background. And then after Ringik, the fixer-upper, you managed to steal a living spider the size of a tarantula, and you keep it as a pet.
Okay.
And last and not least, Bob managed to scavenge a flawed carnelian gemstone worth 10 gold pieces.
Ooh.
Okay, so right. So now that we've got that, we're going to introduce you to some of the different people that are located in the prisoner space with you. So
Do we add those items in?
yep, go ahead and add all those things to your inventory. So
And how would you do that again? I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. I don't think I ever actually showed you. So go to the inventory tab, and then where it says like torch, like just above that, where is the button? Oh, I'm sorry. Down at the bottom, there is a brown like circle with a line through it, and it says,
Okay.
there you go. And then you can just hand
I
type
see
in
ya.
whatever you want.
What did you say it was?
A carnelian gemstone worth 10 GP.
Is there a way to add a tarantula?
I would just do it custom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the slave pen in which you're located is closed with a heavy iron bar or iron gate bolted into the stone. In the area, the prisoners are provided with clay chamber pots, and one of your duties is to empty them into the pool during your shift when you have to work. There are no other comforts in the slave pen, so you actually literally just sleep on stone. You don't even have like hay or something to act as a bedding. Um, you're only fed once a day. It is generally a thin mushroom broth served in clay bowls passed through gaps in the bars of the gate. Now, you are currently held with 10 other prisoners captured during various raids and likewise awaiting transportation to Menzo Berenzin, which is the ultimate fate for all prisoners held here. Some can expect to be sold as slaves, while others await death at the hands of the Drow or their pets. Um,
Hmm.
and every single prisoner here in the short time that you've been around has expressed a desire to escape in some capacity. So the first prisoner I want to introduce you all to is Bupido, and this is him. Oh,
Hmm.
perfect. Bupido is a talkative and cunning Darrow. Um, he he's very chatty. He has a keen mind in a disarming manner. And other than that, you haven't really learned an awful lot about him. He tends to make a point of talking about basically nothing the entire time. The next person in this cave with you, cage, I should say, is Prince Darendil. This creature is a Quaggoth, and I know that almost nobody in the party knows what a Quaggoth is, so I'm going to pull open the monster manual real quick so that I can give you a quick clue, because this is information that you would have. Why did the reference go blank? Monsters. Okay, where are they? I don't know. I can't find it. Sorry, so I'll have to do this from memory. Quaggoths are they're furred creatures that live in the Underdark. They're kind of the size of a large ape, like a gorilla, um, but they are white in fur. They're intelligent creatures. For the most part, they're not so well equipped that they have much of a civilization on their own. For the most part, they serve as slaves to the Drow, and for the most part, they're very cruel. They're often very quick to be violent. Um, and that's what makes this particular Quaggoth so unusual. Um, Prince Darendil, as he introduces himself, is a hulking Quaggoth, same as the rest of his kind, and he looks just as menacing. Um, but he replies to any question that you ask him in very urbane Elvish. Um, and do we have anyone in the party who speaks Elvish?
That's a good question.
I don't think so.
Nope.
Okay, then unfortunately, there are some other prisoners. They might be able to give you a little bit of information for you, but not everyone is super cooperative. There is another Drow in the cage, and if you can befriend him, he might be able to tell you what Prince Darendel says. But he speaks Elvish perfectly, like absolutely perfectly, very crisp. So yeah, he has never behaved especially violent to anyone, even though he looks menacing. And he has made his prisoner's garb, as you can see, into something a little more, um, how would I say?
Ornate.
Yes, thank you, than everyone else. So the next prisoner is a woman. She goes by the name Eldeth Feldrune. Eldreth is a female shield dwarf scout from a place called Gauntlgrim. She is high-spirited and proud of both her heritage and her people's achievement in reclaiming the ancient dwarven kingdom. Um, and that's about all that you know about her. Let's see here. Next up, we have Jimjar. Jimjar is a male deep gnome. He is a feckless rogue with a devil-may-care attitude, a fondness for coin, and the most notable trait of all, an obsession for betting on virtually anything and everything. He will regularly offer you bets on things from your own efforts. Like, I bet you 10 gold that you can't get past that sentry without being seen. The outcome of just any event that happens. I bet you 20 gold that this tunnel is the right way, etc. He sometimes uses the betting to try to goad you guys into doing things, as you've already seen from these descriptions. But he also finds it very difficult to refuse a wager. Now, nobody in here is actually an Underdark species, are they? Yonti, no, 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 nope. So I'll skip that bit of information. So then I will go on to the next character in the list. Everybody say hello to Ront. This is the guy that got the crap kicked out of him by the Fixer-Upper upon arrival. Ront is a male orc from the Ice Shield tribe. Um, After you beat the crap out of him, you were able to get a little more information about his background. He fled from from the slaughter of a band of orcs into the hands of dwarves, falling down a shaft and wandering into the Underdark before being captured by the Drow. He's ashamed of his cowardly act of running away and knows that Grumsh, the god of orcs, is punishing him. But he also doesn't want to die, or at least not in Drow captivity. That's not an honorable death. He's mean, stupid, hateful, but he also knuckles under your authority and threats. He especially hates Eldeth, as his tribe is at war with those people. At any opportunity, he engages in threatening behavior, and bullying towards the other prisoners unless somebody else stands up to him. Next up, we have Sarah,
Seems like
who for some reason does not have a picture attached. A male drow, Sereth is sullen and keeps to himself. Any opportunity that you guys have made trying to talk to him, he seems to rebuff. He seems resigned to his fate as a prisoner, and you're not entirely certain what he's in for. Although, one of you, I believe it was Kyle, picked up on the backstabbing nature of the drow.
Yes.
Okay, so thanks to Kyle, you've overheard that he's been accused of murdering one of his fellow drow warriors in a fit of madness, but he claims that he has no memory of it. And so you suspect that he feels disgraced by his imprisonment based on what you've learned about the Drow. And he also probably considers himself, even as a prisoner, superior to every single person present. So that's Sareth. We only have 3 more left to go. Next up, we have Shushar, the Awakened. This creature is Kuatoa. Shushar is likely to be one of the most unusual creatures you've ever met. The aquatic hermit is calm and peaceful presence. He is aware of other people's his people's well-deserved reputation for madness and claims to have spent a lifetime in contemplation and solitary meditation to overcome that legacy. And to his credit, he appears to have been successful. He exudes an aura of enlightened balance. He's even calm and accepting of his current imprisonment, merely saying that it is what it is, and who can say what end it might eventually lead towards. Now, so that's all information. The only other thing that I would add is that when it comes to Kuatoa, because again, I know that players are not generally familiar with these creatures, as the description that I read tends to indicate, as it tends to indicate, Kuatoa are insane creatures. They, generally speaking, they're aquatic creatures. They live in the Underdark. This is the only place they're found in the world. They make up like crazy gods, and they're like, it has a crab head, and it has the arms of an alligator, and then and they go through all this stuff, and through their collective belief, they sometimes are actually capable of manifesting these monstrosities to worship.
Impressive.
So the fact that this guy has gone out of his way and actually managed to become sane is truly an accomplishment. Everybody say hello to Little Stool. Stool is a myconid sprout, and
Oh,
he is lonely and frightened.
oh,
He doesn't actually have hands. That's all there is to Stool. He is about, I don't know, 2.5 feet tall, and he has stubby little legs, and he kind of waddles around. And whenever he has to do anything else around the encampment, like, I don't know, mopping things, like he'll stick one foot in and then he'll kind of move his foot in circles. So he is an intelligent creature, but you haven't been able to find a way to talk to him because he doesn't have eyes, ears, a mouth, or seemingly any way to talk. But he does seem to understand what's going on around him, and he certainly takes orders from the Drow.
hmm.
Last but not least, Topsy and Turvy. These are twin deep gnomes. Topsy and her brother Turvy are originally from some place called Blingden Stone in the Underdark. They claim that they were captured by the Drow while out gathering mushrooms in a tunnel near their home. Like most other deep gnomes, the tunnels near. Oops. Topsy has stringy mop of hair, while Turvy only has a few tufts of hair atop his otherwise bald head. Topsy is the more social of the two, and Turvy constantly mumbles and mutters darkly, with Topsy repeating or translating what it is that her brother says. Um, and that's about all that you know about them. So, as you can see, this is a particularly motley crew. Um, here's some information
With or without umlaut. Sorry,
with.
sorry, I'll go.
um, okay. So here's some of the information that the party as a collective group has managed to pick up in your time here. I know there's like a lot of background for all of this, but the game generally assumes that you won't know much about the Underdark to begin with, and in this case, that is a good assumption. You have learned that there are 19 Drow total at this outpost, including Ilvara. And in fact, well, no, I'll do the Drow next. Um, no, 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 no. There are also a dozen Quaggoths, and there are some number of giant spiders. 3 Drow guards watch the slave pen from the hanging guard tower across the rope bridge. If you look on your map, you can see that. Um, Now, the cell that you're currently in has some sort of anti-magic effect on it. Spellcasting doesn't work, whether it be arcane or divine. And now, I mentioned a Drow warrior that suffered disfiguring injuries earlier. That guy's name is Jorlan. Um, he recently suffered those injuries, and prior to that, he was Ilvara's bedmate. Hmm. Now that he has been disfigured in some accident, Shore seems to have displaced him. He's the other drow that tends to follow her around. Um, Thanks to Kyle's information gathering, you've also learned that Shore now carries a magical wand that shoots globs of sticky material able to trap targets, a wand of webbing. This used to belong to Jorlan, and the change between the two of them actually indicates a huh, weird. Actually indicates a change in status. Now, you have about another 10 days or less before a contingent from Menzo Berenson arrives to take you to the Drow City, and once you get there, it is almost certain that you will be killed. Now, at this point, the Drow have been dividing the prisoners up into 3 roughly equal-sized groups and then put them to work for a third of the day, supervised by the Quaggoth. You've been doing things like hauling water barrels, operating the lifts, cooking in the case of Eric, cleaning any parts of the outpost whether they need it or not, emptying out your own chamber pots or others, washing dishes, laundry, all, pointless tasks to occupy them and for the Dark Elves' amusement. Um, More importantly, in the time that you've been here, you've also been having really strange dreams, dark shadows that seem to move and reach out towards you as you wander through endless mazes of tunnels. Oily tentacles will slide to brush up against you, while a buzzing and howling arises in the distance. Um, you also see occasional clouds of spores or crawling masses of maggots or insects. Um, and you've woken up many a time in cold sweat since your arrival. Um, let's see. Oh, and then this is for Eric. How do I give this to you?
Ah, rats! Big rats!
Oh, and then I'll just delete that out. I actually have an entry for the Drow poison, so I put it in there for you. Now, the only other thing that I think I should do is introduce you to your overlords. This is Ilvara. She is the commander of this outpost and seems to be an ambitious Drow priestess. She's looking to rise in the esteem of Loth and her house Mizram. She considers this outpost to be a mere stepping stone for her ascension. So she treats both the prisoners and the running of this outpost with contempt. Um,
Mhm.
she has a tentacle rod, and it is a magical weapon with those three tentacled ends, and she can use it to direct the tentacle at you. And once it hits you, it does some bludgeoning damage, and then it can capture you and hold you in place. So she uses that oftentimes for discipline or if someone dares try to escape in her presence. There's no picture for this particular character, but her name is Ashra Van Dree. She's a junior Drow priestess under Ilvara's guidance, and Kyle has picked up on the fact that she is looking for some way to either disgrace Ilvara or off her. And if she can manage to do either of those, she's next in line to run the outpost. Again, no particular picture for this person. Shore Van Dree. He is the elite Drow warrior that has assumed the role of Ilvara's lieutenant and lover after the injuries suffered by his predecessor, Jorlan. He is relatively young and quite arrogant for a Drow male, proud of his abilities and accomplishments. He has been very arrogant in flouting his recent change in status among his other, guards among the base. Um, I don't need to worry about that. The last person worth mentioning is Jorlan Deskrin. He's the guy with this face who has been very much disgraced by all of the disfigurement. And I'm trying to see some information in here. The only other thing that Kyle has managed to pick up on is that he is really, really angry about being displaced in Ilvara's heart, I guess, if that's how one could put it.
Esteem, maybe?
Tentacles.
Tentacles might be the best way to put it. Yes. Anyways, Jorlan has been recently been made to do increasingly humiliating tasks, including emptying your chamber pots, which is something that normally that you do, as well as bringing you your food and making sure that everybody gets their fair share. So he's been in your the prisoners area a fair bit. Now, let's see here. I need. Where is the next stage for this? No, no. Adventure contents. Is this it? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to navigate through this. No. Hmm. No. Okay. I had said that there was some information that was available to the party as part of your backgrounds, so I'm going to present that now. Let me see here.
Yay.
If you look on the map, the rope bridge that leads directly across to that circular space, that space is the guard tower. Inside of it, there are actually two levels to the chamber. There's a lower chamber and an upper chamber. The lower chamber contains a Zerkwood table. Zerkwood is a fungus that is common in the underground. It is the analogous material for wood. Obviously, plants don't grow in the underground, so mushrooms get used for these sorts of things, and it's the only thing that has the consistency to replace wood. Um, so there's a table, 3 chairs, a smaller side table, and there are also some spider silk um, nets that they use for hanging up equipment. Um, there are generally 2 drow in here with one person overseeing them, and the drow that work in this area have often been seen engaging in games of chance, dice, cards, things of that nature. Now, when I believe it was um, the fixer-upper, perhaps, who the guards enjoy humiliating you, they had
That was the other one.
oh, Snake.
Snake. Yeah.
They've had Snake go up to the upper level and um, individually take off and reassemble every single weapon rack that was up there. And so you are aware that the upper level of this thing is filled with equipment for Drow guards, and it's so tantalizingly within reach. There are chain shirts up there, studded leather armor, shields, crossbow bolts, short swords, caltrops. You've seen rope, as well as some building hammers and a couple of bags of spikes, um, which look suspiciously like D4. Um, so that is the secret of the guard tower. Now I just want to find, where is that? But if I scroll down here, I can find it. Is it this one? Yeah, main hall. Now, as for Eric, Eric has been working primarily in the main hall. Um, It is the eating place for the Drow warriors of the outpost. There are 4 large circular tables, again carved from Zerkwood, and surrounded by 5 chairs. Part of the hall is used as a food preparation and storage area containing stocks of dried and fresh fungi, dried fruits, cheeses, preserved meats, and a few clay jars of spices. A heavy iron brazier provides heat for cooking along with dim light, but much of the food that is served here is served cold. Um, at any given time, there are a number of drow and quaggoth that are in there, and it's from this area that Eric has used, bits of cloth to squirrel away food. So when I said that the party has 1 week's worth of food hoarded away, I mean 1 week's worth of food for every single player character and NPC. That's how much food you've managed to abscond with.
Impressive.
Yeah. Um, and you've disguised it as a rock in the corner of the cave. So, let me see. Is there any other information that I have to hand out? Nope. It looks like that's what you get. So now that we've covered all of that, I need to close out a couple of things here and clean up my space. This can go. So, I remember. I just need the side map. Okay. So, in the first shift, scroll up a little bit. You guys are going off on duty assignment to clean this place. So first up, Snake. You have been assigned with who was it? Jim Jar, and you are currently going to Ilvara's quarters, and you're going there to clean up Ilvara's quarters. So you've been taken out of the prisoners area, and if you look at the side map, you go up to that first stalagmite that's sort of near the iron gate, and then you cross a rope bridge, and you come to the second stalagmite, and you enter into the top level. And let's see, is there a description for this? I thought there was. No.
There's sort of a weird, sketchy thing of what looks like a drider.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in this area, the floor is covered with dark silken mats. In the middle of the chamber, there stands a broad pedestal, again carved from Zerkwood. It is a 10-foot high sculpted spider, and it is so lifelike that you initially thought that it was in fact an actual spider there. but since it didn't actually attack you and the guards hit you for being stupid and assuming it was real, you have determined that it is in fact simply a statue. Now there is a rope ladder that leads down to the next area, and in the next area, this is Elvara's quarters. There is not a ton of space down here, um, but it's the guards are in the level just above you, and although there is a way further down that won't lead out. So you're left in here to try to clean up within a set amount of time. So while you're down in this area, you and Jim Jar are here. You're sort of straightening up pillows, dusting things off. Jim Jar takes out the chamber pot, and when he comes back, he starts betting with you. I bet I can make the bed before you, and then attempts to do so. Um, and he's generally being particularly hyperactive today. Now, in the room, you can see that there are a number of thick curtains, thick woven mats on the floor. It's a trillion times more posh than your slave quarters. One side of the chamber contains a small table and two chairs, while the other side holds a small shrine to Loth draped in white silk. There is a heavy chest of black stained zirkwood that sits on the floor at the foot of the bed. Um, Now, if you would do me the small favor of rolling a quick insight check. Three. Okay.
Quality roll.
So at this point, Jim Jar gives you a sideways glance, and he says, "I bet you can't open that chest right there. Whatever's inside of it might be really valuable. I'll bet you that it has gold coins."
I bet you're right.
Well, then you should try and open it unless you're afraid.
Hmm.
What say you?
Okay, fine. Let's get this started.
Okay.
So what do I roll?
Well, if you're gonna try to pick the lock.
Uh,
If so, you're just gonna roll a straight up dex check. Like click literally on the dexterity stat, and you should be able to drag a d20
okay.
off of that and drag it into the chat box.
Not rolling very good today.
Okay. Can you roll me one more dexterity check? And this time use your dexterity save.
Oh, no.
Okay. So,
Snake is dead.
Snake leans over, and you manage to find a bone needle that probably supports Elvara's hair. You think you've seen her wear it at some point, and you insert it into the chest because, of course, it's locked. And you're picking around, trying to get a feel for it, and you put your hand near the lock in order to try to steady the whole thing, and suddenly you hear a click, and then that's the last thing you'll remember. So, we're going to move on, and what happens to Snake later in
Nice knowing ya.
So let's see here. Melrath, Prince Darendel, and Stool are assigned with you one day to go to the hall, the mess hall where you have to do your work. So everybody's assigned in the mess hall, and Stool is running around, pushing a rag on the floor, trying to clean up around the kitchen and get some of the stains of food that have been, splashed about by the other drow that are less adept at cooking than you are. And Eric, can you roll a similar dex check for me?
With my ability.
Yes. Oh no. Um, so at one point while you're cooking, you're not really paying attention, and as you sort of turn around to reach for a jar of spices, you accidentally bump into stool, and upon doing so, it suddenly explodes in a massive um, um, cloud of spores, and in your surprise, you inhale them. So does Prince Darendel.
No.
um, Stool is knocked onto his little feet, or actually, he's knocked off of his little feet, and now he's kind of rolling around in a circular pattern while his feet kick in the air, and your head is really, really kind of foggy for a moment, and then all of a sudden you can hear, "Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! I can't get up! I can't get up! Help me! Help me!" Inside of your head. What do you do?
I guess I'll try and help Stool get back up.
Okay. You lean over and kindly lift Stool back up and place him upon his feet. And he goes, "Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You can hear me." Over the rest of the time that you're in this space, you find out that myconids are capable of telepathic communication using spores like this. And now that it's become attached to you, Stool seems to behave an awful lot like an enthusiastic younger sibling. Um, and he sticks close to you and he asks all kinds of just arbitrary questions. What's that you're holding? That's a spoon. What are you doing? I'm cooking food because people need to eat food. That's weird. Why don't you just absorb nutrients from the air? Yada, 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 yada. Incidentally, this telepathic communication has now extended to Prince Darendel. And now that he can finally speak to someone other than Sereth, who keeps giving him the cold shoulder, he speaks with something equivalent to like a British posh accent. And he explains that he is not, in fact, a Quaggoth, but a gold elf prince that has been polymorphed into a Quaggoth by a curse. He says that he is Prince Darendel from the kingdom of Nelrindenvane in the High Forest. His crown was usurped by the evil wizard Terrastor, who trapped him in this form and exiled him from his people. And he promises to reward you greatly if you can return him to the forest where he can take on the evil wizard.
Okay, well, I'll put that in the back burner until we get out.
Okay. The rest of the time that you spend, doing your cooking passes uneventfully. You're able to steal food away just as you have on many previous days. So next up is Bob. Bob, you end up being assigned to clean the guard tower with Shushar and Topsy and Turvy. While you're in the guard tower, there are of course a number of drow in there, and they're playing dice, and they're really not paying attention to you at all. And it's actually really easy for you to just completely ignore, be ignored by them, and you can actually kind of slack off a little bit with work. Topsy and Turvy are whispering to each other about something, and they're kind of eyeballing something up at the top of the stairs. And in the time that you're sort of sitting there and watching them, you actually manage to get a glimpse of what it is as well. At the top of the stairs, someone has dropped a drow dagger, and it's right up there. It's not. It's at the exact top of the stairs, and it looks like they're actually considering maybe running up there and trying to grab it. Do you want to say anything to them about it?
Um, yeah, tell them that they should go get it for me.
Well, why should we go get it for you? We're the ones who are going to get it. We should get to keep it.
Please?
Please, please.
Worth a shot.
No one's said please to us before. Hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. we'll do it under 2 conditions. 1, you distract the guards, and 2, you become our servant. They look at you very proudly.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
But we've always wanted a servant, and then they start whispering darkly to each other again.
Can I just, like, run up there and get it myself while they chat?
Wait a minute, how their microphone works. Okay, hold on just a second. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go like this. That might make it a little louder. So, anyways, right. So how about this, Kyle? Why don't you go over to your skills tab and roll me? Do you want to try? Let's see. You could try to deceive them into going up there, like lying to them and promising that you'll help, but when you won't. Or you could try intimidating them and speak sharply towards them and see if you can get them to go up there. Or you could try to persuade them to go up there. But deception and
L-
intimidation have the best chances.
Let's try deception.
Okay, so what's the gist of the lie you want to tell them?
um, if they get the dagger for me, I'll do something for them.
Okay. You think about it for a moment and you say that you're in no position to be anyone's servant, but if they were to run up to the top of the stairs and grab that dagger, you have a much better chance of getting away with it, since they are less likely to check you and you have more spaces to hide it. So what I want you to do is go over on the sheet to where you see the +6, click and hold, and then drag that die and drop it in the chat window. That's how you roll for stuff. Well, you were incredibly successful. You managed to
Damn
roll
right.
that in exactly the right way. Topsy and Turvy are reluctant to do anything at first, but ultimately they decide to sneak up there. Now, as part of this, you said you were going to distract the guards. You don't distract the guards at all. Um, the guards, fortunately for you, because I've already rolled secretly, don't actually even notice that Topsy and Turvy are sneaking up the stairs. So I've rolled their stealth, I've rolled the guards' perception check. They don't notice. So Topsy and Turvy make it to the top of the stairs. Um, they grab the dagger and then they hurry back down the stairs as fast as they can. Now they hand the dagger to you and you're able to slip it into the back of your prisoner's outfit. Now Drow daggers have like a spider design in the hilt, which makes them sort of hold on to belts and clothing pretty well. But they're also black. Black as the night, like everything else in the Underdark. So it blends in pretty well, and you think you're going to be able to make it out pretty early. Huh.
Hmm?
Someone was commenting on microphone quality regarding the stream.
Where are you streaming?
Twitch TV, but please don't look because I have DM's material up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
We'll cheat later, don't worry.
Oh, good. Good. Anyways, so next up, Ringik. Ringik, you end up being assigned to go and clean out the Quaggoth den with Bupito and Sereth.
Wonderful.
The Quaggoth den is actually just down the stairs a little bit. If you look at the side view, it's that opening to the far left.
Oh, okay.
Beyond the slave pen and down a set of stone steps, the cave is used as a den by the dozens of Quaggoth that serve the Drow. Their interior is littered with nest-like mounds and debris and the scattered bones of the Quaggoth's past meals. You've been sent down here to try to clean everything up. And while you're down here, Sereth is kind of sullenly picking up bones and tossing them into a pail, and he seems particularly pissed off about something. And meanwhile, Bupito is just generally talking about just a variety of different things. At one point, he makes a comment about the fact that um, he says, well, you know, I've never been to the surface world, but if there's one thing I've heard about it, it's that it has weather. That sounds awful. Absolutely awful. One minute it's sunny, the next it's raining. You can't predict anything. But down here, there's always a consistent temperature. Cold and dark. And that's the way I like it. And he just goes off into this whole tangent about weather and how awful it must be. Um, and anyways, do you participate in this? Do you ignore him? Do you blow him off? Do you reproach? No. Rebuttal?
I'm I'm actually going to try and talk to Sareth
Okay.
and say,
You know, something like this isn't fit for royal blood like us.
Okay. Sareth, well, actually, before I talk about Sareth, Bupito continues his conversation. He actually hasn't even noticed that you're not present anymore. Apparently, he can talk to a wall if necessary. But as you walk over to Sareth, he immediately seems a bit, what's the word I want to use? Um, Standoffish, just like he's been with everybody else. Um, Hold on a second. Where are languages listed? Yeah, abilities, no.
abilities, bottom of that.
Yeah, abilities, common and goblin. Okay. Um, so you're speaking to him in common. He looks at you with a bit of a sneer. But as you're talking to him, he clearly has some level of curiosity. He doesn't say anything in response, but he doesn't, push you away and tell you to stop talking to him either. So, do you want to add anything else?
You know, I wound up sending someone else to jail for one of my hits. Not murder hits. I've done that once or twice, but no. I wound up stealing from a dwarven guard a whole while back. Didn't even see me.
I'm trying to think as I go.
Oh, okay. Well, at this point, Sareth gives you a puzzled look, and he says in decent common, I'm sorry, I thought you said you were some sort of royalty? What need would you ever have to steal from anyone?
Well, okay, my grandfather got deposed a whole while back. He had a glorious reign. Actually, it wasn't very glorious. It was about 5 hours until he got backstabbed. But such is the way of goblin kind, and I will regain my throne.
Well, you do seem to have a prisoner problem in the interim, do you not?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing. So you. So right now we're kind of in the same boat.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think that there's much of any particular chance that I'm going to be able to get out of here. I'm pretty sure within the next 10 days, as soon as we arrive at Menzo Berenson, they're going to off with my head.
Hmm. Care to think of alternatives to that?
Alternatives, you say? Well, I suppose. I mean,
I've,
besides
I've been on, I've been on the run more than once. Twice, in fact.
it strikes me that there are two ways to get out of here. Three if you count dead, but I won't.
No.
No, the most dangerous way, but probably the way that we might survive. Whenever you cross that rope bridge that takes you to the mess hall, if you look down, there's a bunch of spider webs, good distance down that way.
Oh yeah, I saw those.
If you were to jump that rope bridge, you could probably land in the spider webs, and the waterfall forms a basin, a pool at the bottom that we're always emptying the chamber pots into.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Sorry. They were always emptying those chamber pots into. It wouldn't be a glorious escape or anything, but if we could get into the webs and use them to break our fall, and then fall into the pool below, we could really cut down on the amount of distance to falling directly into that body of water, because it's probably not very deep. Now, on the other hand, if you head all the way out towards the mess hall, there's a rope pulley system. There's a big basket and it needs some people to operate the the crank that makes it operate. But it's a really large basket, and it can support a number of people in it. So if
Dude,
we can,
I remember how we got up here. That's how we got up here. I know about the basket.
yeah, well, the real trick is seeing if we can manage to convince one of these other stooges to, work the crank for us, not realizing that they also can't crank and then be in the basket at the same time.
Yeah, it might be doable.
Yeah, but we also have to sneak across the entire base after having made it out of our locked pen in order to get there.
I'm honestly less hopeful about that. If there was some way we could cut one of those rope bridges, we'd only have to deal with half the base, and we could jump down to the spider webs without too much interference.
True, but one half of the base at least is going to be incredibly well armed Drow, and their crossbow bolts, if they manage to sink one into you, will put you to sleep. And not only do you have a shitty chance of succeeding in, staying awake once you've been hit, but if you do, they'll stab you. And as far as I know, I don't have a weapon, and neither do you.
Hmm. Interesting problem, innit?
I
At
will.
this point,
I will quietly grab one of the larger bones from the trash pile.
Oh, at this point, one of the Quaggoths has come up behind you, and you didn't really notice. For big creatures, they are surprisingly light-footed. It whacks you very solidly up the side of the head, and it says, "Hey, no conspiring over here!" And then it grabs you and throws you the short distance towards the door. Sereth looks quite alarmed, but the Quaggoth makes no move against him. Apparently, prisoner or not, being a drow still counts for something here. So that basically ends up being the experience that you have down here. So everybody ends up being brought back to the prisoner's pen, and you all sort of mill about in the pen. You have the opportunity to sort of chat with one another. Um, Assume that all of the PCs are roughly familiar with one another. If you want, you can feel free to announce a little bit more of your backstory and introduce each other. But if not, just say so, and I'll very happily continue the story.
Who? What's the big orc's name?
Ront.
See, I'm gonna see if I can convince a party member to get. Who managed to beat up Rond? Was that Snake?
Well, Snake isn't even there, I don't think. Right? Isn't
I'm so sorry. I never mentioned what happened to Snake. When everybody returns to the prisoner's cave, Jim Jar is in the corner and he has the biggest smile plastered all over his face. And at his feet, literally at his feet, is the Yuan-ti spread out across the floor. Around his hands, there's a fairly large wound. It has some blue pus seeping out of it, but it
Ugh.
also looks like it's been treated with some sort of herbal remedy. Jim Jar very proudly declares to the party and all the NPCs, "So I managed to trick our snake fella here into unlocking the chest in Ilvara's quarters. Oh man, is she pissed. It turns out that it has some sort of trap on it that managed to put him to sleep the instant that pin hit him. He should be waking up any minute now. The Drow have some sort of doctor on base that has a remedy to the poison. She decided that a Yuan-ti was too big of a prize to pass up on since they're such rare creatures in the Underdark."
And don't. You said poison. My character is poison immunity. Does that matter?
That's what I was just about to get to.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So here's what actually happened.
I see.
When the poison needle struck you, there was also a magical spell on the chest itself, an alarm spell. And so
Okay.
suddenly there's all these chimes and noises, and you know that the drow upstairs have been alerted to the fact that you've been trying to pick this lock. You know that the poison can't affect you, but you figure that you're probably not going to get beat if you pretend to be unconscious. There's literally no point in beating a dead horse. So you faked being asleep.
Or that snake.
have faked being asleep this entire time, forcing them to carry your very large body all the way back to the prisoner's pen, where you actually got out of, the rest of cleaning that particular location. Now, Ilvara is actually quite pissed at you, and supposedly she has some punishment that's going to befall you within the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, whenever she thinks you're ready to return to work. They, having never encountered a Yuan-Ti before, don't know that you're immune to poison.
Fascinating.
Hmm. So, while everybody else has been brought back, you sort of, fake and yawn, wake up and pretend to be weak and sort of rejoin the NPCs. Your evening meal is delivered, and Jorlan is at the front of the prisoners area. So, which of the NPCs is going to go up to get the food for everybody? Oh,
Which
sorry,
is the
which of the
P?
PCs I meant?
I was gonna say.
I guess that'll be me.
Okay. Um, So Melrath goes up to the gate. He makes it all the way up there, and Jorlan starts handing him the food. But unlike normal, Jorlan pushes himself a little closer to the gate, and he mutters to Melrath, "If I could give you the means to escape from here, would you take it?"
Yes.
All right, well, here's what I propose. I'm going to leave the gate to this pen unlocked. Now, I can also create a distraction far from the pen when the changing of the guards on duty occurs. There's an armory in the chamber above the guard post, hanging directly in front of the slave pen. And if you can get there, you can get yourselves armed quickly and then attempt to jump from the rope bridge down into the webs below. And if you can make it over the edge of that, you can make your escape into the pool. What do you say? Are you in? You're only going to have one shot at this.
Sure.
Okay. So, well, quickly then, go tell the rest of them, because if anybody's left behind, those people are very likely going to die.
I,
Okay.
What's up, Chris?
I think I think it may be time for an insight check. I don't want to be betrayed.
Unfortunately, you're not participating in it. The only person who can roll that insight check is Eric.
That's true.
Okay, I'll roll.
So,
Never met a more trustworthy person, right?
as far as you can tell, his offer seems to be genuine. And I mean, technically, the best way that you can tell whether or not his effort, his assessment is genuine, is if the gate is left open. So, that's the best sense that you can get as to whether he's telling the truth or not.
True. Alright, I guess I'll wait for him to go and then tell everyone else about what's about.
Okay. So, Eric starts to tell all of the other prisoners. They quickly start passing it around. Everybody is now aware that there's a plan. So what I want to ask now is that the PCs, you guys, should be the people sort of leading this, because of course the NPCs are under my control. So what is the general plan that you want to try to execute in order to escape here? I mean, are you just going to follow exactly what he said? Chris mentioned something about cutting a rope bridge earlier. Come up with a plan.
Yeah, I think once the distraction happens, we should try to escape, gear ourselves up, then cut that rope bridge and jump.
Okay. Is everybody good with that plan?
We should probably also cut the rope bridge to the what the hell is their name? The hired lackey thugs that the Drow have. Whatever
The
the
Quaggoth?
Quaggoths.
Oh, they're not on a rope bridge. If you look at the side view map, there is actually a long series of stairs that leads down to the Quaggoth den. So
Oh.
essentially, what you're going to have to try to work out here when it comes to the means of escape is, your prisoner pen is that, I don't know, spade-like opening that has the bars across it.
Hmm.
The stalagmite in question is the stalagmite directly to the right of it. The rope bridge in question is the rope bridge to the right of that, leading all the way over to the other side of the base. And down that set of stairs is the Quaggoth Den. So there's another rope bridge that leads out to that stalagmite. So if you're going to cut off both rope bridges, you can certainly do that. The rope bridge pictured in the side view, that's the one that goes over the largest portion of the webbing. And that's the area that you're most likely to be able to fall into it and be okay. Now, of course, be okay is relative because there are giant fucking spiders that have been maintaining this web and are somewhere down there. So you're going to have to be quick about making it over the edge of that web or through the web or however you manage it. So those are the obstacles before you. Now there are doors on this stalagmite. There's the door for both rope bridges. And Kyle's been in there, so he can tell you, as well as Topsy and Turvy, that those doors are closable, but they don't really have any locks or anything on them. It might be possible to push some of the furniture in front of them to temporarily bar them, but you wouldn't be able to set up something sturdy and sort of like, sequester yourselves away and be okay in here. They're going to break through eventually.
Alice, can you send that side map again? I lost it on my layout here.
Okay. Also, just as a general note for everybody, if you go to the lower right corner, there's a button that says Library. And when you open that up, on the right-hand side, second from the top, it says Images and Maps. If that button is not clicked off, click it now. Because when you click on Images and Maps, all of the images and maps that I ever share with you will be saved right here. And you can open them up whenever you like. But regardless, here is the shared map for now. There is a top-down view. I'm mostly working with the side view at the moment because the top-down view is fucking huge. But anyways, and actually I will share it because I just want you guys to see what I was talking about. So I know that there's a lot on your screen right now, but that stalagmite that attaches to the area that I wrote in as slaves, um, that shows you what I'm talking about when it comes to the webbing. It also shows you what I'm talking about in terms of the pool that's underneath all of this. That I think it was the Drow. I can't remember his name. It's like something.
Sareth.
Sarah, thank you. Had suggested that you try to make your way into. So, with all of that in consideration, do you have any other amendments that you want to make to your plan?
We should be ready to just bail into the spider web without equipment if we absolutely have to, but it's not exactly plan A.
Okay, then there's one last thing that I'm going to try to bring up for you because I think it's relevant. Guard tower. So, everybody that's in the party, we have 2 spellcasters, which means that for them, they're probably not going to be taking a lot, but I just want to very quickly go through all of the stuff that's available up there.
Okay.
There are 6 chain shirts, 6 suits of studded leather armor, 6 shields, 6 hand crossbows, 20 cases of hand crossbow bolts, each containing 20 bolts, 6 short swords, 10 daggers, 6 bags of caltrops, which probably contain somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 caltrops per bag, 4 100-foot long coils of silk rope, and 2 bags of iron spikes with about 10 spikes per bag. So those are all the things that you can pick up. For your character, take a quick look. If you're a fighter, you probably want the chain shirts. Figure out what it is that you're going to take from this place so that you can add it to your inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I'm going to... Can I... Perfect. Here's what I'm going to do.
Chain shirt.
Yeah.
Are we adding that now?
No, what I'm doing is I am
Oh.
plopping the object here for you. so that if you choose to pick these things up, you'll be able to just click and drag it right to your character sheet and equip them as you should to get the effects
Nice.
out of them. So then let me go to weapons. I need simple ranged weapons. I thought hand crossbows were simple. Well, the fuck?
What sort of melee weapons are there?
Just short swords and daggers, I believe.
Yes,
Uh,
Unfortunately, but it is what it is.
dagger.
was hoping for some sort of spear, but okay.
Yeah, Pickens is slim. Let's see, long sword, short sword. For some reason, I can't find the hand crossbow, so I'm gonna say that a light crossbow is basically the same thing. That's why it won't really do anything. Now let me just see if I can find caltrops. Okay, caltrops. Oops.
Alex, when dagger and short sword has the property finesse, does that mean it's dex and not strength?
Yes, any character using it uses dex, not strength.
Oh, yuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Incidentally, with the rope, I can only find 60 feet. For the purposes of this, I'll know it's 100 feet, but there's the rope, and I'm just making sure I've covered everything now. I don't normally deal with ammunition, so that won't be an issue. Crossbow, daggers. Yeah, I think I got it all. So those are all the objects. So we're going to skip right up to the escape. Now, at some point, Eric slips up to the front gate when the guards are not being particularly attentive. He pushes forward on the front of that gate and it opens open, wide open. Now the gate has a bit of a whine to it, but fortunately for you, the thrum of the waterfall echoes throughout the cavern and it kind of muffles that. So you manage to get the gate wide open. Now is your moment. You've got to escape. Now, when you look across the rope bridge that leads to the rest of the cavern, there are some luminescent fungi at some really like key positions that provide some light for people to see, and you can see that Jorlan is discussing something with some of the guards that are supposed to be coming on duty. So he is upholding his end of the bargain as far as you can tell. So you're going to sneak into the guard tower? Are you going to check on the Quaggoth? What are you doing?
I figured if I alerted everyone and there's a mad rush, they can't take us all at once.
Okay.
I could stealth over there and get some stuff for everybody, but I don't know. It would depend on incapacitating those two guards.
There are no guards. That's the point.
Oh,
Yeah, they're being distracted by Jorland. They're way across. If you look on the side view, they are near the stairs before the second stalagmite.
okay.
So they're all the way over there, and they don't
Right.
seem to be looking in your direction because they're looking at Jorland. So I'm going to assume that there's a mad rush. All of the prisoners pile out of there. You start racing across the rope bridge, and you storm into the prison. Sorry, the guard tower. Once inside, everybody is able to quickly equip themselves with whatever the heck that they would like. But now that you've equipped yourself, what are you going to do?
Second.
Leroy Jenkins.
Next. Studded leather for dex bonus. Dagger. Short sword.
Are you guys going to fling yourselves over the edge into the web? Are you going to cut the rope? What are you going to do?
I'm gonna stealth and quietly cut the rope bridge from the guardhouse to the rest of the place.
Okay. So that's going on. You go over to the edge, and Jorland's still talking to them. They don't seem to have noticed anything. You go over and you start cutting the rope bridge. You manage to cut the rope. I don't know what to call them, handrails, for lack of a better term. And then you find that the rope bridge itself is actually rather securely attached to the stalagmite. It seems that the rope section that you could cut is on the underside of the bridge, which means that you would have to lean over the edge underneath and cut, which I think you can start to see kind of the problem with doing.
Since I am tiny and would have to lean out there and be seen.
Well, no, it's not about being seen. It's about the fact that you have to place your body weight on the thing that you were cutting the supports of.
Or I could ask somebody to hold my feet while I do it.
All right. Is that what you want to do?
So, somebody want to help me while I cut this?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Eric grabs Goblin Feet and holds him over the edge. Now, Chris as a character does not weigh a hell of an awful lot, like, 60, 70 pounds, something like that, which is plenty for you to be able to hold. So you hold him over the edge, and he has that dagger, and he starts cutting away at the underside of the bridge. And he manages to get the thing to break off and start swinging. Now, as soon as that happens, the drow that we're talking to, Jorlan, notice that the bridge suddenly vanishes because and they start shouting. Now, you can tell they're shouting because you're looking at them. But yeah,
Waterfall.
yeah, the waterfall is making that difficult. So they've broken away from Jorlan. Jorlan is caught up in the rush to alert the rest of the base. And all three of them spread out and start making people aware. You've probably got less than 30 seconds. Very quickly, one person, what are you doing?
Um,
We
I
gotta
guess.
bail.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say we probably gotta bail into the water.
Okay.
Right.
So everybody
Okay.
is going to jump out and try to hit the webs. Roll for me a dexterity check. Don't roll low.
Oh. I'm afraid.
Wait a minute. Who hasn't rolled?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Snake did well.
Snake did well, and
Yeah, I know. It's scary though.
as everybody piles out, let me scroll back up. I need a list of names here. Okay. So as everybody piles out of the door, flinging themselves into the webs below, um, Prince Darendil throws himself out the door, and as he does so, he's the first person to land on the webs. The giant spiders are beset upon him in a heartbeat, and they start chewing away at him, and you can vaguely hear his screams as you two approach the web's surface.
Wow.
Eldeth is the next person to jump in. She also ends up having a giant spider come at her, but Eldeth manages to be quick enough that she pushes her way in between strands and falls into the murky water below. The next person to jump is Ringik. Ringik, you've managed to land and you fall into the webbing. You can feel spiders racing across. So I want you to make. Give me just a second. Where is the? Sorry, there was supposed to be a DC, but it doesn't matter. I'll make the DC up myself. Roll a quick dex check for me. Everybody else is going to need to do the same, so have your dex check ready. Excellent. Ringik manages to very quickly pull himself free. Also, just a quick aside, for other people whose strength is higher than your dex, you'll be able to roll that in place of a dex check to try to get out of the webbing. The strands for this particular web are coated in a lot of mist from the waterfall, and it actually makes them surprisingly more slippery than they would be normally. As such, you end up finding yourself falling backwards into a giant pool many, many feet below. So next up is Bob. Bob, you end up getting pushed out of the door because Melrath is directly behind you. He's winding up to try to slip out himself. Kyle tumbles head over heel and manages to fall into the webbing. Kyle, now that you're in the webbing, you can hear a spider chittering just above your head. You've got
Ugh.
moments. Now, I've had it pointed out to me by the people listening in here that if you have a acrobatics or athletic check that is better than your strength or your dex, then you can roll that in their place.
No.
Okay.
Can I intimidate the spider?
Well, I don't think that's going to help you in this case. It looks pretty
Yeah.
hungry. Why don't you try a strength or a dex to get out of this thing?
Whichever's higher.
Whichever's
Wait a
higher.
minute. We have spare food. You could use that.
He doesn't have it. Eric has it.
Can I burn the whole place down? Because home don't play
Actually,
spiders. Oh, there's a good check.
Yeah,
Here you go.
fortunately you don't have to, but it seems that your magic is once again working now that you're sufficiently far from the prisoner area.
My magic wasn't working. You didn't tell me that.
It did. It was one of the first things that I mentioned. There was an anti-magic aura over the area for the
Damn it.
prisoners.
No, I should have listened.
Yeah, you should listen. So, anyways, you managed to squeeze between the webbing. You fall down into the pool below. Eric, Melrath tumbles forward, having accidentally knocked Bob off balance, and himself falls into the webbing at an awkward angle. The spider that recently was just trying to take out Bob, notices your weight hit the web and suddenly redirects towards you. You've got moments. How are you going to get out?
Athletics check.
Oh, no. Eric, you struggle with the webs, and it seems that the spider manages to get forward and sinks a fang in. You take 4 points of damage. Where's your hit points? Hey, Eric, hit points. I'll just do it on your character sheet. That's fine. There, you've taken 4 points of damage. At this point, are you going to try to fight off the spider, or are you going to try to continue to slip through and see if you can get away from it?
I'll continue to slip through and try and free.
All right, give it another shot.
Nat one, nat one, nat one.
Oh no! Oh, wait, it looked like
What?
you rolled a 4.
It did look like a 4.
That is so weird. Okay, the motivation of a spider chomping on you is more than enough for you to push with all your might, and you too manage to fall through the web and escape. I believe Snake and the Fixer-Upper are next. They both throw themselves into the web together, and the two of you need to roll for your escape.
Oh no.
No. Snakes are not meant for webs.
You want me to roll the other one now?
Yeah. But apparently clerics are. They fall right through. The half-orc plunges into the darkness.
He's too heavy.
Yeah. Snake, let's see how much the spider bite does for you. Oh no, 2 points of damage on your buttocks. Wait, that's 7, not 2. There we go. That's the correct number. Yeah, so the spider sneaks up behind you and sinks its fangs into you as well. Struggle again and try to escape, or will you attack the spider?
I will try to escape.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so you managed to slip through this time. Yuan-Ti's bodies are particularly wide, and that makes it difficult to manage to worm your way in between the spider webbing, but you still manage to do just that and plunge into the water below. Now, unfortunately for both Darendelle and several people that come afterwards, he has been wrapped up and saved by the other spiders who have realized that there is a veritable rain of food. Ron manages to hurl himself into the webbing, and he also manages to escape. Sereth similarly throws himself into a different area much further out, and thanks to that distance is able to slip through before the spiders can bite at him. Stool manages to throw himself through, but the webbing never actually catches him. He's just too small. So he slips right in between some of the strands
Aw,
and falls directly into the water with the rest of you.
adorable.
Jimjar manages to throw himself over the edge and lands in the web on top of a spider. So suddenly there's a mad rush from all the other spiders to climb on top of it, and they tear Jimjar to pieces.
Good. He bet me into some dangerous places, so.
Now, Topsy and Turvy do manage to actually make it through. The two of them throw themselves into the web together, and they are prepared for the landing of the webbing, and they actually manage to sort of grab the strands to slow their descent a little bit, and they do cute little acrobatic flips and dive into the water.
Hmm.
I think the last people to go are Bupito, who throws himself down in there. The spiders manage to bite at him, but he still makes it through, and he manages to fall into the water below. At this point, Shushar is up at the top, and he looks a little bit reticent. But it turns out that at that exact moment, as other guards are managing to line up in the other at the door that would have led over here had that rope bridge still been in place, um, several large winged creatures start to swoop into the area and buzz around. You have no idea where they've come from, but they are clawing and scratching, and they're flitting in and out of the light, so you really can't get a good glimpse of what it is that they're supposed to be or do. Um, One of them slashes at Shushar, and he falls out of the door, dragged by this creature, and manages to slip out of its grasp and fall into the web. When he does fall into the web, he tumbles and rolls and manages to slip between some of the bonds and falls into the water below. So I think that's everyone. The only person that didn't manage to make it was Prince Darendel.
And Jim Jar.
Yeah, he's dead.
And Jimjar, yes, Jimjar is dead. And so I got those things. I covered this.
I
As
would
you
have liked
guys,
to form an alliance with the prince, but whatever.
as you have managed to make it down into the pool below, where is the thing for the pool? I think I have to go to the other map. Give me a second. Map. Nope, that's the side map. Here we go. Everybody manages to pull themselves out of the pool of water. Despite the waterfall flowing into the pool below, a lot of this water is fairly stagnant. There isn't much of a grade leading out of here, so the flow is very, very mild. And unfortunately, that means that there is, as everybody pulls themselves out of the water, you are literally decorated in feces and filth. All of the
Well,
chambers
thanks for that image.
that have
Jeez.
been emptied over the edge by yourselves, you are now
Makes
covered
sense.
in. Yeah, yeah. Um,
Wonderful.
Now, everybody manages to pull themselves out onto the edge, and Eldeth is there, and she's like wringing out her hair, and then all of a sudden, out of the surface of the water, a a strange tentacle reaches out, grabs her by the foot, and pulls her into the water. You can see that they're struggling and bubbles. Is anyone going to try to save her?
Bye, bitch.
It seems that poor
I'm
Eldeth has fallen prey to a gray ooze. The
I'm
creature.
I'm going to roll a wisdom check to see if I'm going to do something like that. It might be against my nature, but
I think it's against your nature.
it's very much against my nature. Oh well.
The party watches, now a little bit further back from the edge of the pool, as the gray ooze enwraps and consumes Eldeth as she calls out to you for help. Congratulations on having successfully escaped from Velkenvale. Now, at this point, those creatures up above are still swarming around, and they've now taken the bulk of the Drow's attention. So, here's what you know. All of the prisoners quickly huddle up. to try to discuss how the hell to get out of here. What you find out from some of the other denizens that were from the Underdark, such as Sereth and Bupido, as well as, is that the only one? Topsy and Turvy and Shushar. The North Passage leads towards Menzo Berenson. It does eventually lead towards Blingdenstone, which is the home of the Deep Gnomes. Now, one of the things that is worth knowing is that in the Underdark, the only species in the entire place that is not of an evil alignment are the Deep Gnomes. So
Okay.
it is worth noting that they may eventually be a good place to head towards. Now, the problem is that taking the North Passage and going that goes towards Menzoberranzan means you actually have to skirt a major Drow city to get there, and there are Drow
Not to mention,
patrolling. Huh?
not to mention the people that were going to pick us up and take us there anyway.
Yes, exactly. You might accidentally end up delivering yourselves into the hands of your enemies, and it would be a lot harder to escape from Menzoberranzan than it would be to escape from Velkenvelv, which is where you've just escaped from. Now, the West Passage leads most directly towards an area called the Dark Lake. It is it's an area where at least you can get some water. I mentioned this in some of the preview stuff about the Underdark. A lot of this place is very dry and is very dark and dusty. There is water, there is food to be found here, but you usually have to do a fair bit of searching to find it. Not every single cave is dark and damp. Dark Lake also happens to lead towards. Oh, give me a second. Where is the map that I need? Maps.
I ate it.
Underdark. What do they fucking call it? Hello? What the shit? There's no. Okay, I'm just gonna consult my book again. I have a book. It has a map of the entire Underdark. That's what I was looking for, but I know where it is, so I'm just gonna open it up.
I will consult the bones.
All right. When it comes to areas to head towards, here we go. I finally got it. Taking the west place out, passage out that leads towards Dark Lake. There are two settlements on the edge of Dark Lake. One of them is a place called Sloobduldop. It is a home of Kuatoa. Now, Shushar the Awakened mentions that his plan is to head towards Sloobduldop no matter what anybody else does. He thinks that once he gets there, he can convey the peace that he has managed to find onto his other brethren and actually raise the Kuatoa race up from their madness. So he's headed there no matter what. Now, the other place is a city called Gracklslug. Now, Gracklslug is the home of the Dark Dwarves. Dark Dwarves are not kind creatures. You can go to this city and be okay because they trade with surface races all the time. There are some dangers present in going to Grackslug, but the most notable thing about the Deep Dwarves is that they do not like Drow at all because the Drow have lots of world domination tendencies and the Dark Dwarves are not here for it. So if you manage to make it to Grackslug, there is a degree of protection because it is also an incredibly heavily armored city.
But doing so would wind up sacrificing Sareth, most likely.
Possibly. There are Drow that are allowed within the city, but never in number. Stool suggests Neverlight Grove. It is the nearest Myconid location. And Eldeth likely would have suggested Gauntlgrim, which is probably the furthest but most safest location. So in terms of distance, from Velkenvale, Sloobduldop is 8 days travel from here. Grackslug, the deep dwarf city, is 28 days from here. Neverlight Grove is 36 days from here.
Wow.
Blingdenstone, which is the deep gnome city that I mentioned, is 30 days from here, and Menzoberranzan is 26 days from here. So, based on all of these different locations, do you have a sense of where you think would be best to go? Because as soon as whatever it is that is buzzing those drow up there stops, the drow that are up there are going to pursue you, and they're going to try to re-enslave you.
Quick question.
Sure.
The Myconoid people that Stool suggested, do we know anything about them as a people? Like,
They generally they tend to align towards neutrality, if I'm not mistaken.
okay, so they aren't evil then.
No.
Right.
But just because a creature is evil doesn't necessarily mean that it immediately intends you harm.
Sure, like the
Huh?
dwarf, like the deep dwarfs aren't necessarily the problem, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have some other primers and information about the deep dwarves that I will be able to tell you. Now, one of the other things that I really wish I could have showed you, but apparently the map just doesn't exist. So, in your head, just sort of imagine Velkenvale being in the center of the map. To
Mhm.
the northwest is Sloobduldop, which is the 8 days area away. Now, imagine like the shape of an egg, the Dark Lake. If you go around the bottom of that egg, that's how you get to Graxlug, and then past Graxlug is the Neverlight Grove. And then you could essentially go around the bottom of Dark Lake, because Menzo Berenson is sort of at the tip of that egg shape. You go around the bottom of that and come up the other side, and you can come to Blinkdenstone while completely evading Menzo Berenson. But of course, it's the long way around, you know?
Personally, I want nothing to do with Menzo Berenson.
Yes, I think that's wise. So the
Can we?
question is, which of these places do you think you should set out to? Because your intent here is to evade Ilvara and the drow that will be pursuing you.
And which one is the closest again?
The Kuatoa City, Sulbduldop.
With the bad people.
Now, Sloobduldop being on the edge of Dark Lake, it's possible that you might actually be able to grab some boats from along there and use those to cross the Dark Lake, which actually might be safer. You don't know what's in Dark Lake. There might be something there, something other than fish. But
Given that one of our friends just got grabbed by some sort of thing in a relatively shallow.
Fun with tentacles, again.
Well, we could put them on the outside of the boat.
There you go.
You guys are cruel, just dragging them around the outside. Well, listen, in fairness, what I'm trying to say is, if you go to Sloobduldop, you might be able to take a boat, and then if you're on the water, it makes it a little harder for Ilvara to pursue you, is what I was trying to get at.
Mm.
But feel free to hoof it. You might be able to go to Sloobduldop or go straight to Graxlug and bypass Sloobduldop. But the safest
What was the
place,
Myconid village again?
36 days away, it's called Neverlight Grove.
Oh, okay, Neverlight, right, okay.
In order to get there, you have to pass by Graxlug anyways, and
I see.
you guys are going to be in need of supplies by then.
Right.
That was my next question. How much food do we have?
You have a week's worth, and there's a really important thing that this helps me transition into. When it comes to the travel pace of the party, the travel pace in the Underdark is significantly slower than for overland travel. Not only are there tunnels and passages and often difficult terrain with uneven surfaces, but routes in the Underdark are rarely direct. The characters must follow available passages and their twists and turns, climbs and descents. So creatures that can burrow through solid rock move at normal burrowing speed, but that's not really an option for you guys because no one has a burrowing speed. So that said, there are 3 ways that you can travel. You can take a fast pace, which lets you move at 8 miles per day. But the downside is that you are at a -5 penalty to passive wisdom perception scores, meaning your ability to sort of perceive your surroundings. So you might get ambushed by monsters, you might get ambushed by the drow themselves that are pursuing you. But it lets you move at a faster pace, and the drow are going to have to do the same in order to keep up with you. Now, the other downside is that if you move at a fast pace, it will not allow for any foraging from the surrounding areas, so you'll not only have to make do with the food that you have, but any water that's available. And the nearest pool of water is literally filled with feces and is not an option. You could move at a normal travel pace, which allows you to travel 6 miles per day. There's no penalty for this, but it would be pretty easy for the drow that are pursuing you to keep up with you. So any head start that you have could get lost if you end up coming across an obstacle. The last option is to move at a slower pace, 4 miles per day. This allows you to gives you an improved chance to do foraging in the area, meaning you can spread out, check surrounding areas for water, for food in the form of mushrooms or huntable animals. But it would also allow you to use stealth, meaning that you would take the time to try to cover up your tracks or otherwise obscure yourselves in the dark.
Hmm.
So, um, the travel times that I showed you or discussed already, those assume a normal pace without stopping for more time than is spent resting. Okay. Um, and is there anybody in the party that can't see in the dark?
I think you insisted pretty heavily that we all should be able to.
I suggest it.
Well, my characters can.
Okay. Is there anybody here
Ringate.
who knows that they can't? No.
What race is Bob?
I'm a tiefling.
Oh, okay.
He has dark vision.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess we're good then.
So that you don't need to worry about illumination. All right. So now that you're aware of all of that, the only other question is where are you headed?
I honestly think the Myconid village in the long run is probably the best option.
Okay.
And it gets us past that Dark Dwarf city, too, where there's lots of options. And we're heading that way for the Kuotoa.
Well,
I think-
right. But I guess the question is like lay out a path for me. Are you stopping at Sloobdadop? Are you bypassing the Kuatoa and going to Gracklesblood? I love these names. They're great.
What's it called again?
Which one?
Sloop the top.
It changes every time.
Yep.
Every single time.
Stirp-de-derp.
But anyways, are you stopping there? Are you going straight to Graxlug and then on to Neverlight Grove?
I was honestly more focused on getting away from the Drow pursuers first.
I hear you, but I need a path that you're setting out on in order to get you away from the pursuers.
Do we want to try the lake and see if there's a boat? Or is it
I do like tentacles.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, nobody objects to Sloobdadop, so that is where
Yeah.
you guys are going to be headed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start rolling a little bit to see if there are any random encounters that occur
Oh,
as a
boy.
result of you guys going through. So I'm just
What
trying
pace
to...
are we going at first?
That's a good question. What pace are you going at first?
I would vote in favor of fast one day and then slow covering our tracks the next.
I would like to point out something that I am aware of as a slightly more experienced D&D player. One of the things that I think is important is that you guys have food, but you don't have water. However, you do have a cleric in the party, and clerics have a spell at first level that allows them to create food and water. Now, you can produce enough food and water to move at a fast pace for about 3 or 4 days, and then at that point, you guys will need to replenish your stocks of food and water. Create food and water is not enough given the party size that you currently have in order to feed and quench the thirst for everybody. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's an option.
Wait, so we're taking all these NPCs with us too?
They're following you, so unless you're going to specifically throw them to the gray ooze at the bottom of that pool, I dare say that Bupido, actually, I gotta remember who died. Bupido, Ront, Sereth, Shushar the Awakened, Stool, and Topsy and Turvy are all going with you. Now, I would also point out that the party may want to choose their favorites among these people and have those particular people stay with the party and act as guides to the Underdark, as it were.
Well, isn't the place we're going to the
Kuatoa settlement?
no, the Sloop de Dop?
Yeah, that's the Kuatoa settlement.
Oh, okay. With the big purple guy.
Hmm.
Oh, but he's the only sane one, isn't he?
Yeah. The rest of them are like if you put arms and legs on piranhas.
Sounds promising.
I know, right?
Apparently, I do have a feature that allows me to communicate telepathically with any creature, though. Does that include mad ones?
Yeah. They can
I'm not sure
understand
that's a
you.
good idea.
I mean, it might not be, but he can still do it.
Why is he talking to that crazy guy over there?
Actually, you know what?
I was thinking more along the lines of the craziness might infect you.
I mean,
This is what Kuatoa looked like.
I'd like to grill him personally.
There might be other pluses to going to the Kuatoa settlement.
was that a pun? Oh gosh.
Kuatoa Archpriest is not amused.
He's wearing a diaper though. Jeez.
And here's yet another Kuatoa. So anyways, just to give you a sense of what it is that you're walking up towards. So, okay, the party's going to head towards Sloodledop, and let's see here. So I believe, what is the actual pace that you're setting? I want an official thing for the party.
Definitely not slow, I think.
Okay.
You want to start fast?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be keeping track of the Drow pursuit. They have a specific counter and information about how you guys choose to escape is going to increase or decrease that counter. Okay. Now, if you're moving fast, there'll be no time to cover your tracks, so they'll be able to know where you went, but they may not be able to keep up. So the party sets out into the Western Passage. As they set out, you guys are traveling for a solid 10 hours. And at this point, you're all pretty tired. You're getting ready to try to find a way to settle down for the air quotes night. And suddenly, you come to the end of the passageway that you've confronted. And give me just a second. So there's this it looks like a dead end at first, and then as you look up, you see that there's actually a 23-foot high wall that leads all the way up. Now, can everybody quickly roll me a perception check? Okay.
Ringik is not paying attention.
Oh, perfect. So when you guys are all confronted with this wall and suddenly thinking about, well, God, should we go back? What should we do? At this point, the fixer-upper points and he says, look, up at the top. And you guys are able to see that there's actually a rope ladder that's been pulled up at the top. And it seems to have been sunk into the cliff with pitons. So if you could get someone to climb up the cliff, they might be able to push the ladder down, and everybody would be able to climb up.
Would that be an acrobatics check?
It would be an athletics check.
Oh.
That's me.
Don't we have some friends that we could send to do that?
You can actually send some of the NPCs. Ront is the most likely person to be able to do it aside from Eric.
Let's put his life on the line first.
Okay, then I'm gonna roll for him. Plus, okay. Ront grips the cliff after being swatted heavily by the fixer-upper, and climbs all the way up to the top. And when he disappears over the ledge, he disappears for a moment too long, and for a minute, everybody holds their breath, thinking, "Well, maybe Ront's actually left us to our fate." And then the rope ladder suddenly hurls over the side and then clatters to the bottom against the cliff face. You're all able to climb up to the top, and Ront is up there with his arms crossed, looking very stern.
Yeah, you keep your boy in check over there.
So, are you guys just going to keep going?
Well, no, let's pull up that rope ladder and make sure that the drow can't use it to climb up.
Well
Ooh.
done. You guys have
Ooh.
affected the Drow pursuit. If you do things such as this that successfully make it difficult for the Drow to follow you, I will make note of it that you have done so by mentioning the Drow pursuit. What is this?
Excellent.
Nice job.
Ooh.
Excellent. Yes.
Well done, Chris. So, let's see. You guys continue along. All right, you guys have moved through several caverns. They've been dry. There hasn't been an awful lot of note, and you come into this large passageway that's sort of shaped like a kidney bean. And I'm sorry, I lost my place.
Bean.
I'm looking at a reference material.
Mr. Bean.
Sorry.
I got it. Here it is. As you guys are moving through the passageway towards the only other exit, you find that there is a strange rock, and as you move close towards it, you notice that as the first person moves through, I believe that's Melrath. I should actually set your marching order, but I'll do that in a minute. As Melrath starts to walk forward, he walks forward, and then behind him, a ghost image of Melrath walking forward also starts to follow him. What do you do?
I'm gonna try and figure out what the hell this is. Is this religion, Arcana? I'm gonna roll Arcana. Completely untrained to see if I've heard anything.
Okay. 16, that's pretty good.
Wow.
Here's what I'm going to do. You and several other of the other prisoners are kind of puzzling over this, and you all walk around and experiment for a minute. It seems that the image that's created is one that only does what you do. It doesn't attack you. It doesn't do anything else except duplicate what it is that the members of the party do. And what you've determined is that this is what is called photostatic rock. Events that happen in the presence of this rock imprint upon it for a short time. 1 cubic foot of photostatic rock can pick up impressions in approximately a 10-foot radius and automatically relays them to anyone who touches it later. The photostatic property reveals only what happened within its radius for the past hour, and yada yada yada. The short version of this is that what you determine is it will relay what has happened, which means your passage to anyone that comes across it probably within a day or so. Now, you did manage to pull up that rope ladder, so it's unless they all climb up to the top, and Mistress Ovara is not the kind of person to get her hands dirty, they may not come this way. They may be forced to go around and try to find another passage that meets up. But if they do come this way, they will know for certain that you pass this way.
How big is the rock?
Well, the rock is actually the material that the cavern is made out of. There is you know how if you've ever seen cliff faces, there are sort of like layers of rock. This particular layer of rock is 30 feet wide and runs across this cavern. It doesn't cover the entire cavern. The entire cavern is 66 feet wide, but it covers this middle section, and so it can imply the direction that you guys came from or went to, but it won't show like everything that happens within this cave. Does that make sense?
Oh, so we can like trick them by like pretending we all pass, and then someone goes back and like pretends we're on hill.
True, but as soon as you bypass back over the photostatic rock, then it would pick that up too. But you could confuse them for a while if you run back and forth across it.
Play the Benny Hill theme.
Okay. Um, unless you guys have any other particular thoughts on this, I guess I'm just going to have you keep moving on. Okay. So,
That was odd and quiet.
it
I
is
was,
what it
I
is.
was, yes, by the identity property.
Yes, Chris? You were about to say something.
I said, yes, it is what it is by the identity property.
I thought you were going to say more. Moving on. As the party continues, so you're walking down the passageway, it starts slooping downwards a good way. And then all of a sudden, you all feel a tremor. And suddenly, a lava filled fissure opens up behind you, and lava has started flowing in your direction. You all start racing down the passageway as fast as you possibly can. And Eric is the first to put his foot on stone that isn't solid. The floor opens up beneath you, and you're all swallowed up by it and tumble down a long, long passageway, head over heel, one after another, until you all pile up at the bottom. And then, as the lava continues, it slowly is seeping down that same passageway. You can see its ember light coming up behind you. You race out of that into another passageway, and you find that you come to a cave that has multiple exits out of it, about 4 of them leading out in different directions. There's one to the left, two sort of in the center, and one to the right. Which one will you take?
Which direction is roughly the same direction that would get us towards the lake?
Um, you're a little turned around, and you're also a little, little unsure based on having fallen head over heels. But you suspect the passageway to the right is most likely to lead you in the direction you need to go.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so heading off to the right, the party barrels down that passageway, and it ends up sloping downwards pretty steeply for a good ways, and then it slopes back upwards. That downwards and upwards, that area is going to need to get filled up by lava. So it seems that you've actually managed to choose a correct path, or at least something that's going to slow it down. It has to spread out over that entire area, and then down here, and then back up in order to get to you.
not to mention it'll block the Drow.
Yes, because at this point they're going to have to get around a lava flow. So that will also affect Drow pursuit. Now at this point it is 9:05, so I recognize that we're a little bit over. I'm just going to set up the next encounter, and then we'll call it a night. All right.
Okay.
Right too.
So as you guys are piling through, you come and follow the long winding passageway the rest of the distance, and it suddenly opens up. You come to a platform, and that platform shows that there are a network of spider webs crisscrossing a 500-foot deep, 2,000-foot wide chasm that stretches for nearly 5 miles. The major strands of the web are traversable, but due to the fact that some of them look kind of old and unsteady, you're not entirely certain that this is an entirely safe thing to cross. There are a lot of spider webs crisscrossing from your side to the other side, but it looks like, in a general sense, there is a way out on the opposite side of this chasm. And it's a much, much higher cliff, so you'll be doing some ascension to get up there. As you come into the cavern, your eyes immediately catch upon some movement. And to your great surprise, it isn't actually spiders. You see 2 goblins that are gliding around across the surface of the webs as if they aren't sticky at all. They're surfing kind of like Tarzan from the Disney movie across these strands. They'll do flips and they'll land on another strand and they'll continue sliding about. So you can see them moving around up there, and they don't seem to be pursued. They actually seem to be having a fair bit of fun. Do you guys want to try to get their attention? Do you want to try to avoid their attention?
I mean, I'm a goblin too. I could talk to them.
That's very true, and in Goblin.
Yes.
So you're going to signal to them?
I think that's a potentially good idea.
I need a yes or a no.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, You guys suddenly start waving your hands and sort of shouting in the direction of the goblins. The
I was
cre-
just thinking me, but okay.
Sure, but it helps if you have an entire party of people making noise. So everybody signals towards the goblins, and they very clearly see you. So they head around, they start sliding down a number of different webs, and they finally come to a skidding stop on the platform that you occupy. Um, the first goblin is a short one with a little tuft of hair at the top. He's got yellowish brown skin, and he says, "Greetings, I'm Yuck Yuck, and this is my pal Spiderbait." And he jabs him in with his elbow. The other goblin is much taller than goblins typically are, and his features look very set. Uh, the goblins the goblins kind of push and shove each other for a moment, but what do you say to them?
I'm gonna say in Goblin, it is good to see other people, other goblins. It's been too long.
Um,
How are you doing all that anyway?
Yuck
Been
Yuck
glad.
picks up on the goblin language and immediately smiles. "Ah, another enterprising goblin," he says in Goblinoid. Um, Yuck Yuck explains that, well, you see, we discovered a while ago that there's this natural secretion from one of the cavern ledges up above, and if you can collect enough of it, you can actually slide across the webs. But we have enough for ourselves, but not a group as large as you. So if you want, we'd be willing to serve as guides to get across these webs. Now, if you agree, we will settle for a price of, say, 2 gold pieces per party member each. But if we find any treasure in the web, such as other people that didn't make it or caravans, well, then we insist on getting half the loot, and then the other half can be divided amongst all of you. What do you say? Do we have a deal?
Hmm. Let me discuss it with my compatriots.
Okay.
So what do you guys think?
How big did you say this cave was?
It is about 500 feet deep and 2,000 feet wide.
Hmm. I mean, I say go for it.
They're probably one of the best chances we have. However, we are penniless at the moment, so we would probably need to bribe them with more of the
Well,
loot on the webs.
you may be penniless, but both
Oh, wait a
you
second.
and Kyle happen to have gemstones.
Right.
That's
Um,
true.
Can't forget that.
I do have a tiger eye.
So the two of them together, I believe, are worth 25 gold pieces. That's more than enough to cover the cost to get across the web. So long as they're willing to accept the gemstone in instead of gold pieces, you should be fine.
Should we try to bribe them anyway?
Well, it depends. Do you trust them?
Oh.
I'll do an insight check on them, just real quick.
Okay. Anybody else can do an insight check as well. You don't have to speak Goblin. It might be wise for other people to do
Wow.
that. Holy
There we go.
Well, you know what? The fixer-upper is really an expert when it comes to goblins and goblinoid motivation.
Apparently.
Just tell you, he can tell you that these guys are true to their word. They'll serve as guides to get you across, and you'll be just fine. They seem more interested in the potential benefits of having extra people to help them haul loot across the webs than they do in stranding you upon them.
Let's go for it.
Okay, so that'll be what we start with our next session. That's going to take up some time at the beginning of that, so that'll be it. So thank you guys so much for playing. I hope that you all had fun, and we'll see what other people die horrible deaths next time on the webs.